What up, guys? It's JP, and today I'm bringing you a game analysis. So, this is from a Lichess ranked game that I just played. It's fresh in my head. And I think it's important because I have been doing a lot of low rated tactics recently, and this one tactic that keeps reoccurring happened in this game, and I won because of it. So, I want to run through this real quick and show you why this pattern is relevant, the mistake that black makes to facilitate this pattern, and how to exploit it when it happens to you, and how to avoid it so it doesn't happen to you. So let's take a look. I'm playing white. I play d4 because I do London type things. So he goes to attack my pawn. That's fine. This is a perfectly reasonable response. I protect my pawn, take the knight out, and black fucked up. You don't play f5. You don't move this f-pawn. It's not a thing. It's not a good move. You should never do it, pretty much ever. Just keep that in mind for the rest of your chess career, and you will lose a lot less games. So why is this so bad? When you move this pawn, you are opening this diagonal and this diagonal. Your king is exposed. You have no pieces to block the checks. So it's really easy to get checkmated, and if you don't get checkmated right away, you're going to get checkmated very soon. So let's see what happens with the rest of the game. I develop a piece, and he makes another really bad move. Normally, pushing the e-pawn is fine, but now, and I see why he did it, because he's reinforcing this pawn, but this diagonal is open, and this diagonal is open. His queen and his king are very vulnerable to getting attacked. And where else are they going to go? They're blocked in, blocked in, blocked in. Like, this is bad. So, honestly, okay, no, never mind. I see where I did this. I'm pushing this pawn to reinforce this pawn, and I'm getting this pawn out of the way of my queen. Great. So he develops a piece, checks me, easily block this check with tempo. I chose not to put my knight here because I didn't want to pin my knight to my king, and I wanted the now that this bishop is being attacked by a pawn, he has to. I have a tempo basically. He has to move that away, or he loses a piece for the price of a pawn. So he does. And now it's time for me to employ this tactic. Step 1. I need to clear this diagonal. So I have to get my knight out of the way. I put my knight in position to further facilitate this tactic. Notice my knight is eyeing this square and this square. These are very important squares in black's territory. Notice they're also along this very important diagonal. Black has a couple of ways to respond. We're going to go through a couple of them, but first we'll go through what happened in the game. So black he moves his knight here, and it's pretty much the worst move he can play. Attack with my queen. Black has two legal moves. He can move the king to get out of check, or he could block. He chose the worst. He moved. If you don't see it already, this is checkmate in 1. The game's over. I bring my queen in, and it's not even that I played this game spectacularly. Black enabled me to do this. He beat himself. And now you could sort of see why you don't move this f-pawn so early because it allows this to happen. There's a couple of ways to exploit this tactic. So let's see. I want to say this is what I was expecting. No. So the tactic that happens often in the tactics that I was solving, when you move your queen here, what's very common is for people to block with this pawn. Looks great, block the check, and I'm attacking the queen. Wonderful. But no. The common response, when this knight isn't here, granted, I wonder if I could set this up without that knight being here. How about, like, we'll give black a nothing move, and then queen, block, but then you take this pawn with the knight, and what you're threatening is when you move, you're attacking this rook, right? And this queen is still on the same diagonal as the king. So you're threatening to take the rook with check. So the king can't move to either of these squares because the knight guards both of them. So what a lot of people do to make the best of a bad situation is capture this knight with the pawn. But now that opens this up. You take the rook. And this is pinned to the king. Black doesn't have a lot of good options here. If you turn on the engine, you can see that white is plus 7.3. So that's the main point of this video, and I even think I could stop it right there. So what have we learned? We don't move the f-pawn. If you see your opponent moves the f-pawn, you want to find some way to probably get a check in with your queen on the h-file. And you could do some funny stuff with your knight. And look what this knight does, because sometimes it gets it could throw a wrench in the plan. See, if this knight was over here, he could take this, and then capturing the rook wouldn't work. But in this case, in the case of the game, because the knight was here, and he moved his king, it gave me the ability to checkmate. If he instead maybe, I don't know, he could have stopped this. Like it didn't have to be as bad as it was. It says the best move. You're still up +3. Like the +3 is a decisive advantage. Don't get me wrong. You could have played queen up, and then it says captures, and then you capture, and then he has to move, and then you take this pawn, and it's still, like, this is disgusting. This king is going to be stuck here. He's not going to be able to run away, and eventually the plan here would be to, like, push the rest of your pawns and pieces on your king side and just eventually checkmate him. So this is the best case scenario for black. You haven't lost immediately. You haven't lost your rook, but your opponent is like pretty much +3. Okay? Don't move your f-pawn. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day.